afternoon, traders. This is Christian Farmer's Certificate Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Monday, October 13th. Well, how's everybody doing after that? After the last couple of days of market volatility, today a big snapback that we saw in the markets. Qs outperformed today, up 2.1%. SPY was up 1.5%. IWM actually outperformed, as well as the microcaps did, up 2.8 and 2.9% for the day. Gold had a huge day, as well as silver, up 2.4%. Dollar gained a little bit more again today, up 0.4 of a percentage point. I'm gonna just put the give you all of the screen so that you can see some of these numbers. Make sure I've got the right screen. There we go. And the risk disclaimer, please make sure that you read that. But obviously, everything that we're going through in today's video is for education purposes only. So those are impressive. That's an impressive snapback for the indices, and I will go over some levels to watch because now we're going to have to contend with a little bit of overhead resistance. I noticed that like midday with the Qs that we kind of just bumped right into some resistance and really didn't go anywhere in the afternoon. But again, big gap up today, and then some follow through activity too. These gap ups, whether it's something like we experienced on Friday and into today, always difficult. Today, obviously more dramatic with the backing down of some of the rhetoric that we saw on Friday. Amazing how quickly this happens. For example, like as I talked about in Friday's video, I did not go home with a lot of risk. I did not go out and start buying the dip Friday after the close. In fact, when I was going over Friday's video, there was new headlines that were hitting about the exact amount of the tariffs. So that whole experience, there's a couple takeaways before I get into some of the price action today. And by the way, the snapback in the indices, just some of what happened in the sectors and these the areas that have been doing really well. I mean, what's the adjective to describe some of this price action? Probably pretty awesome to see clean energy up 7.6%. Metals and mining, unbelievable, up another 7%. I've been talking about metals and mining till I've been blue in the face for the last couple months, because I know it's not one of those things that gets a lot of attention because growth stock traders are focused solely. Many of them are focused solely on growth stocks, so they don't want to look at metals and mining. But the momentum that's been in that group has been crazy, and I know that's a lot of the rare earths, but it's a lot of other areas too. It's been a pretty amazing move. So just a couple takeaways from Friday's price action, and what we saw with the whole crypto move down. A lot of drama, I would say, on social media over the weekend. I typically kind of take the day off for the most part on Saturday. I need a day to kind of get out and exercise and get some perspective away from the screens. I spend a lot of time in front of the screens during the week, both during market hours and after market hours, because I like to do homework when the market is closed. But you need to take a day away from the screens. And I just saw as we kind of thought was going to happen, just a lot of people talking about what happened with the crypto stuff. And, and my perspective is I get these are sharp moves, and people calling it a crypto crash to be more dramatic. I've traded through a lot of markets before. As bad as the crypto markets were, and I'm talking about mainly like the bigger cryptos. I'm not talking about some of the smaller ones that really were more volatile. But this stuff, I mean, this is good. Let me try to be positive here. Right, this is stuff for you to kind of learn. Right, I've experienced a lot bigger volatility than what we saw on Friday and what we saw on after the close with the cryptos. But that's my experience. Like, I traded through 2007 and 2008, where I hate to tell you, but the leverage was also very high then. Some hedge funds in 2007 were carrying 20 to 30 times leverage. So yes, there's a lot of leverage now in this crypto market, and that could cause people to get hurt. and that's not fun, and don't want to see that to happen to anybody. But this is where you kind of learn things. If it's the first time that you've seen a little bit of I don't want to say a little bit, but if it's the first time that you've seen some volatility, right? It's never, being on the wrong side of the market is never a fun endeavor. This the whole thing with crypto and how it works differently than equities is a concern, because they don't give you a margin call, for, similar to equities. Like if you're on leverage, they just sell your position, right? And that's a risk that you have to be aware of. And if you're on leverage, you kind of have to ask yourself, first of all, what you're doing on a day like you had on Friday. People still had leverage. I mean, it's borderline, and I hate to be harsh, but I just have to be. I mean, this is trading is not for really for the weak, right? But if you're on 20 times leverage or 10 times leverage after the price action that you saw on Friday, and then you got cleaned out after the close on Friday. But I'm sorry, but these things, like, if you don't know any better, then something that you should have to experience, but you should really never be on leverage that way. Hence, I talked about in Friday's video that I took down a lot of my exposure. Why? Because you have to be a risk manager first, right? And I didn't do that in every account. I did that in my trading account. I also have an account called the TTG Trend Portfolio. I did not make any changes there, but I'm also not on leverage there. And I just kind of said, hey, these are following the trend. If I have to make some adjustments, I will do it Monday or Tuesday. We'll see how bad Monday or Tuesday is going to be. But in my trading account, yeah, I'm going to act once we break some support. I'm going to take action. And that's just something that I've learned, because number one, you have to protect your capital, right? And I know that we all have different time frames, right? So for my longer term stuff, I'm not going to touch that. 401k, IRA, I'm not going to touch that. But for my faster trading stuff, where I've got built in stops, of course I'm going to take off risk. And that's just part of the game. Your number one is to protect your capital, right? Now, would I have been happier today if I didn't make as many changes on Friday? Sure. But it's all, hindsight's 2020, right? I did think that this was all part of a negotiation. There was a post out that I argued with over the weekend about the whole Trump Xi thing was a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, guys. It's a negotiation, and they're playing hardball. At least that's what we know. That in these negotiations, where when you're going to meet with each other in a couple weeks, and there's a lot of issues to negotiate, you sometimes start with a very far away position. And if you've taken, and I think I said this in either I said this in Friday's video or the weekend video, you're going to start from a far off position and you're going to draw in. So this taco stuff is cute, but that's really how negotiations work. And I get it. A lot of people don't know how negotiations work, but you do. You start from a far off position, and then you try to make compromises to try to come together. Now, if one side backs away and starts doing things where they're limiting exports to uh, rare earths, where they said that they weren't going to do that previously, then the other side also backs away and says, okay, well, if you're going to back away, then I'm going to back away. Right? This is just how a negotiation works. And then as the time gets closer, hopefully cooler heads prevail and you come closer and you make a negotiation. Now we're at a stalemate with the government shutdown, and eventually that's my feeling is that's going to hit the market too. But in any event, let's move on. That's just a little bit of recap from what I thought on Friday. It's not so much I'm making a prediction about what I thought was going to happen on Monday or over the weekend. It's just risk management. And if you're not doing that with some of your positions, you don't want to get yourself cleaned out. And you don't know how bad, this one day move that we had. And by the way, like, that's a good observation for now. Let's go to the charts and let's start reviewing some of this. But um, we've had a couple of these pullbacks over the last couple of months, and they've been very shallow. To me, this looked different. Now, of course, it is very much headline driven. So you don't know when headlines are going to change. And yeah, and again, anybody who made a lot of money today because they averaged down in a couple things that they had a high conviction, I that's awesome, and I'm happy that you made money. But I have to follow. Everybody has to follow their own trading plan. So while I didn't take any positions off in the TTG trend portfolio, and that worked really well for me, I did in my I did in my trading account. So I still had a very nice day today, but I would have had a much better day, obviously, if I didn't unwind some positions on Friday, as I talked about in Friday's video. So where are we? So that's a little bit of my background. I like to be as transparent so that you can kind of understand some of the reasoning, whether or not it makes money or it doesn't. Right? For me, it's about risk, right? And also preserving some of my profits from October. I've had a pretty good October, right? If we were down another 2 or 3% today, then I'm kissing goodbye a good portion of my profits, for October. So it's also a little bit of that. And part of what I did too on Friday is I sold early. I sold 3 or 4 positions in the first hour of the day. Anyway, let's what's going on here? We got a headline. Uh Navitas, NVTS. This is a name that we looked at that is on the watch list. I don't know what the news in here is on NVTS. Let's just take a look. Sorry to get sidetracked in these videos. I don't mean to do it, but sometimes I do. Let's see what the headline is. They Another power headline: power architecture for NVIDIA's next generation AI factory computing platforms. There you go. I'm just going to put this on social media too, so that everybody could see this. We saw a boatload of option activity on this Friday morning in NVTS. So let's see where this thing's trading. Uh, this is the day, and took out that VPOC up there. Yeah, look at this thing go off here. So it's retracing. They got a next VPOC up here at 1298. Let's see what that looks like on the daily chart. There's 1140. Yeah, and then so very nice move. If you got long, I mean, there, like I said, there was a boatload of option activity that happened. This was mainly before on Friday before the headlines that hit. All right, let me get back to the program here. SPY, watch this. So what I'm watching here is, yes, we had a nice bounce here, but now we're kind of into some overhead resistance. You got the 5-day moving average, you got the 20-day moving average. You also have the top of the value area, and that's going to be 667.24. That's 6/10 higher. So that's what we're going to have to get through. You don't know if we're going to get up here and get rejected. Just don't know if that's going to take place yet. Also looking at the 1 hour chart, which is also going to include the value area that I just mentioned, which is the one in pink. And by the way, the bearish 80% rule did complete. It's just not highlighted on the daily chart, but that's where we went on Friday afternoon after the close. But you're dealing with a bunch of resistance that we're going to have to get through. So, one of the things that you can do, there's different things that you can do, right? You can sell a call spread for the week if you think that we're going to have trouble getting back up here. You could also, like on some individual positions that you're long, you can maybe sell you could do a covered call as well if you think that we're going to stall here. Similarly for the Qs, and this is a little bit more straightforward because we're right into, and this is something I put in my midday note. I said watch this level. This is 60260 is the level to watch here. Um, that's where we're going to be fighting with. Now, we did get over the 20-day moving average, which is nice, but not back over the 5-day moving average. That's what I would kind of like for the short, from like a trends aspect, is for us to get over 60261 and get back above the 5-period moving average. Then I think the trend is back, is back in place. You could see today, like how many times that we tag this, by the way, right? So you could see that same value area that I had on the daily chart on this 1 hour chart that I'm showing you, but you could see 60261, bang, 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 bang. We just didn't have enough. I mean, today was a big enough day, so I don't want to take anything away from today, but we could not get through the value area. So that the value areas and volume at price is telling you exactly where there's some resistance. And if we get through that, then we're also going to have to get through 60321. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm saying right now we know that there's resistance right in front of us. and that's this 602 61 and 603 21. I'm also just going to show IWM because IWM has looked different all year long comparatively to SPY and to Qs, and it looks different today as well. This broke really hard into the value area, and look at us come back. And this is the only one out of the three that I just went over. As I mentioned, small caps outperformed today. Well, look at them; they got back above the value area for the month and the 5 and the 20-day moving average. Now, I would say as well from just candlestick charting, I would like to see them maybe get above here, but I think that's a pretty darn good 1-day move. You could also see on the daily chart here that we got inside the value area for the week as well, right? And now it says bullish 80% rule. So as long as we stay above 243.60, the bullish 80% rule is in play. An 80% chance to go from one side of the value area to the other. All right, that's the indices. Let's see one thing here, guys. Wow, look at this. NVTS is trading up to 1160. That's awesome. So big mover there in after hours. All right, so what do I want to get to first? Well, here's how I construct my watch list for members over the weekend. I'm just going to re-share the screen. Right. So I put together a spreadsheet like this every weekend for members. The ones that are in dark over here are ones from the previous week. And I go through about that's 13 names. So I go through about 20 names from the previous week's watch list and I kind of weed out them and I decide which ones that I'm going to keep that I think are still interesting. And then I kind of add to those names for new setups. And these yellow ones I actually added for today. You could see NVTS is actually on there because I forgot about that over the weekend that we saw a lot of option activity in this on Friday. But this is how I kind of construct things. And there's obviously going to be news like today, like Arista Networks was down pretty decently because there was a contract that was announced and it infringes on Arista Networks business. And that contract is being awarded to NVIDIA. So why don't we start with NVIDIA first and look at that chart? Because even though I don't trade NVIDIA that much, or probably not as much as I should, I think it's still a very important stock for the whole AI movement. And I'm not sharing the right screen, so let me do that. So I think as long as NVIDIA stays above 184.51, I think that's a pretty good indicator for the whole AI movement, right? If NVIDIA starts breaking down, then I think the whole AI trade may start to lose some of its momentum because NVIDIA is such a big portion of it. Another name that, the other area of the market that I would also watch um, is just how some of these power generation companies are doing. Obviously, let's see, where do I want to go to first? I just want to show the chart of PBW. Which is the clean energy ETF, which look at the move on Friday and it came back nicely. I also want to show the uranium chart also making a new high today, even though a crazy looking candle. Some of these things are really extended at this point. Oklo, which was amazing. I think it was still up 8% on Friday. Made a new high today. Again, when you see something like this, it's also good to kind of go back and look back and say, geez, that was a crazy day for Oklo. It was up 14%. It still finished up, I think, 8%. But notice a lot of these things didn't lose their moving average, right? Didn't lose the 5-day moving average. It held the short-term trend. I thought that was very impressive. I thought what was very impressive too is what went on with MP Materials and all the other rare earth names. MP Materials really had over the last couple of months hasn't been participating. You probably heard about me complain about MP Materials, even though I still have a position in the TTG trend portfolio. Don't have anything on in my trading account, but the other names have been acting better until this move that was up 21%. So no slouch. UAMY was up 36%. And full disclosure, I sold this Friday morning, by the way. I didn't get any of these 36% gains. I thought this candle, I had sold some up here. I thought that was good enough. Certainly not so much. The other one, of course, is USAR, which also was up 18% today and basically has doubled in a couple weeks. Just very impressive moves. Um, let's get to a couple other names. BE, of course, had an announcement. I was talking about how nice this volume started to decrease as it started to digest. That's a pretty good signal that you can watch when you see volume like that. When it starts to digest and move down a little bit, you want to watch for this volume to kind of come down like it did. That means that the sellers are kind of moving away, right? I don't want to say seller exhaustion, but the sellers are just, they're not there anymore. And then we had this nice green candle on Friday, and then a breakthrough here on a $5 billion contract. I think it was with Brookfield. Heck of a move there, up 26% today. Congrats if you're holding this. I have this in the TTG trend portfolio. I also bought a little bit of this not pre-market, but when it kind of came in a little bit to about 104, 105. So that worked well. EOSE was a name that I put on the watch list for this weekend. I was reading a story over the weekend about batteries and EOSE and Tesla. Tesla I sold on Friday, but I bought it back today. I bought it back as it got into try to get into the value area for the week. That's on this candle right here. That was actually failed on this attempt. I stayed with it and it managed to go through here. Now, Tesla's a tricky name, so you kind of have to have your position right with Tesla. I don't like having a big position of Tesla because of how many shakeouts the stock has. And the way that I kind of think about it is if it does have another shakeout, maybe I kind of add to it. But I really think outside of the autos, I think just the play on energy. By the way, my overall thought on what's been going on with all these energy names and the clean energy and the name like EOSE is just, I think everyone's coming to the realization that you're going to need a lot more energy for all these things that AI is doing. Like that was already, I think people already realized that. And hence all the power generation companies were going like PWR and CEG and NRG and GEV, which I'm going to bring up now because I think GEV looks pretty interesting here. And I actually started a position in this one today too. Um, this has been consolidating for since it reported earnings, but I think these are going to maybe start to come back into play again. But the point that I'm trying to make is I think people realize that more and more efficient energy um, alternatives are going to need to have to come into play here to get if AI is going to be this big, you're going to be using so many resources and more as AI is becoming bigger that you're going. That's why all these clean energy stocks are going the way that they're going. It's just a realization that's coming into play here. So what I really like and we're on this is Monday. So we don't know. I'm going to bring up the weekly chart, and we don't know how the rest of the week is going to go. But would say that this is a pretty nice looking bull flag that's being formed here. Again, don't know how this bar, we have 4 more days of the week. So I'm not going to jump to conclusions about if that's going to close. If we close right here, I would be very satisfied with that weekly candle. So let's see what happens. And hence, that's why I just put a starter position on just to get something in there. And we'll see how this develops for the week. What else did I want to cover? Might as well look at the semis as well. We'll look at the semis chart. Um, that's just again crazy check back to the 20-day moving average. Let's see if it can stay above that 5-day moving average. And let's see. I don't want to make the video real long. I know I've been doing longer videos recently, so I want to kind of keep them short. But I didn't go over the quantum names. All right. IONQ made a new closing high today. RGTI, super impressive, up 25%. So these things, and like just like I was talking about with ACLO, this also didn't break its 5-day moving average. I mean, this has just been amazing. I stuck this in the TTG trend portfolio a couple weeks ago when this thing dipped and started to make its move out of here. So, I mean, look at the move since then. just incredible. So congrats to holders. The whole quantum movement, it's just running on a lot of buying. A lot of people want to get involved in these things. One thing which is a head scratcher to me, is look at IBM. IBM essentially was down on the day. This is the one that actually did have a quantum breakthrough. I don't know why it's so out of favor. I guess like the retail crowd has not embraced IBM. It's not as fun to trade as a RGTI or QBTS, but I would still keep an eye on IBM. One final note here. As strong as breath was today, because it was the NYSE volume was up 84, 85% today, I still think that you're going to need, outside of just today's snapback, you're going to need other areas to participate. We know that the breadth has not been particularly good. We'll see how earnings shakes out tomorrow. We're going to start with the financial earnings. JP Morgan is going to report, Wells Fargo is going to report, Citigroup is going to report. So that's going to kick off, some of the bigger earnings reports. But I think it's going to be very interesting how this earnings season unfolds, and whether or not that's the earnings like it was last quarter is going to be a catalyst for growth going forward. So a little bit of wait and see there. The first name that goes on the earnings gap list that I manage for Tribeca Trade Group members is APLD. I would really like this APLD, like the 5-day moving average, to kind of catch up here a little bit. So I don't mind that it didn't do much today. Let's let it catch up, and certainly some of the other names in the group, are on fire. This is a very strong group. IREN was up 7% today. CIFR was actually exploded to the upside, was up about 19, almost 20% for the day. All right, guys, I'll